The UN boss calls for international support for the hurricane-hit islands of the Bahamas. And in sports, and Kitts and Nevis Patriots end their losing streak in the CPL. I'm Ricardo Roberts, and this is Caribbean in 10 for Monday, September 16th. I'll be back with the details after the break. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres described the powerful Hurricane Dorian that devastated the Bahamian islands of Abaco and Grand Bahama as Category Hell and called for greater action to address climate change. Guterres visited the hurricane-hit nations over the weekend and said it was key for international community to learn two things from the monster storm which struck on September 1st, killing at least 50 people. One, he said, is that there is a need to stop climate change and make sure to reverse the current trend. The second, he said, is that countries like the Bahamas that do not contribute to climate change but are in the first line of the devastation of impacts of climate change deserve international support to be able to fully respond to the humanitarian emergency, but also for the reconstruction and the building resilience. The UN chief was able to visit what one government minister later described as their ground zero of the Abaco and Grand Bahama. Now, taking to Twitter, he said he was horrified by the level of devastation. He said that despite having spent 10 years in some of the most crisis-ridden parts of the world as head of the UN Refugee Agency, he had never seen anything like it. Guterres said that although some skeptics of the aid effort expressed a view that middle-income countries like the Bahamas should not be supported in the face of disasters like Dorian, he believed that idea was wrong, especially with middle-income countries that have high levels of vulnerability to external shocks they are not responsible for. He insisted that the international community has a huge responsibility to support the Bahamas. Meantime, the Bahamas government last night issued an immediate ban on the construction of any new buildings in the four major shanty towns on Abaco. The cease order was made with immediate effect in the community of the Mud, Pigeon Peas, Sandbank and Farm Road. These areas were flattened by Hurricane Dorian, which killed at least 50 people and left more than 1,300 missing, including 300 Haitians. Before the hurricane decimated them, they had more than 1,000 homes and an estimated population size of 3,500, according to government reports. The order, which is valid for at least 6 months, mandates that no person shall erect any new building or development for the purposes of residing or carrying out any commercial activity in the identified areas. And the ministry said the order may be extended for further periods of up to 6 months as required. It also noted that the purpose of the order is to allow for recovery efforts and the removal of storm debris related to Hurricane Dorian. Meanwhile, forecasters monitoring the progress of Hurricane Humberto says it poses a threat to Bermuda, and it is expected to be around 230 miles west of the island by midday on Wednesday as a Category 2 hurricane. National Security Minister Wayne Keynes said the Emergency Measures Organization is prepared and stands ready to convene should the storm's forecast track pose a threat to the island. The Bermuda Weather Services says Humberto will bring dangerous sea conditions ahead of its passage. And police in Jamaica are reporting an increase in all major crimes in the parish of St. Catherine. The news follows the declaration of a state of emergency in that parish earlier this month. We get more in this report from TVJ News.
The state of emergency is on in earnest in the parish of St. Catherine. As lawmen carry out their joint military patrols, grim statistics were outlined by acting head of the St. Catherine South Division, Superintendent Rex Swearing. He said, major crimes in the division, which includes several Portmore communities, have increased above 40%.
As of now, the division is experiencing 333 major crimes as against 284 such crimes for the same period in 2018, and that's an increase of 45.
The major crimes that are up: murder, shooting, and larceny. Murder has increased by 29% when compared to the same period last year, while shooting is up by 96%. Searches will be intensified in the coming days as part of the measures to stem the crime wave.
And stay with us, your Midday Sport is next.
We set the tone with Frank. There are many people like Frank, but it's interesting the damage, the harm, and the destruction that is caused before someone's life comes full circle about that we all are human beings, Marcia.
You know, there's one word in his narrative that stuck out with me that relates very currently to something that happened with my two grandsons in the northwest quadrant of Washington, D.C. He said he learned.
Coming up on Caribbean Passport, highlights of a memorable CariFesta 14 in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. The creativity of the Caribbean and all that the region has to offer was on full display. Celebrate our Festival of Arts as we strengthen the bond between us on Caribbean Passport, the CariFesta edition, right here on this station.
Welcome back. It's now time for sport. A half-century by Evan Lewis and 4 wickets by Akeem Jordan ended St. Kitts and Nevis and Patriots' losing streak after they dismantled St. Lucia Zouks in match 13 of the Caribbean Premier League yesterday. Batting first at Warner Park, the Zouks were condemned to a paltry 138 for 9 of 20 overs. Colin Grant Humberto scored with 30, while opening batsman Andre Fletcher and Rakeem Cornwall fell cheaply for 1 and 5 runs respectively. Medium pacer Jordan scalped 4 for 33, while Pakistani leg spinner Usama Mir and Trinidadian Riyad Emrit picked up 2 wickets each. In reply, Lewis was instrumental in setting up the foundation for the Patriots' second victory in the tournament. He scored a classy 65 of 30, which included a 45 runs partnership with Laurie Evans and a combined 62 runs with Mohammed Hafiz, who ended with 26 from 22 deliveries. But it was captain Carlos Brathwaite whose unbeaten knock of 14 got the Patriots over the line with a massive 6 to beat the Zouks by 6 wickets and 31 balls to spare. Still in cricket, the West Indies women's misery continued on Saturday night when they suffered yet another defeat to Australia women in the opening T20 International of the 3-match series. Choosing to bat first in the affair under lights at Kensington Oval, West Indies women could only muster a paltry 106 for 8 of their 20 overs, with captain Stephanie Taylor top scoring with an unbeaten 44 of 51 deliveries. Now, not for the first time, fast bowler Megan Scott was the standout for the visitors, claiming 3 wickets for 31 runs. That's Caribbean in 10. Join us again at 6:30 for Caribbean Newsline. Until then, good afternoon.